Welcome to Fantastic Vision. Please subscribe us before you watch today's video. Since Biden came to power, the Democrats have not lifted the sanctions on China's chips, but have increased them layer by layer, trying to contain the development of China's chip industry in its infancy. In response to the unreasonable restrictions of the United States, China has specially formulated corresponding countermeasures, and Chinese chip companies have also been frustrated and moved forward bravely under the suppression of the United States and Western countries. In the process of sparing no effort to suppress China's chip industry, what exactly have the United States and Western countries gained? How did China break through the blockade and make great strides in the field of chips? The United States has stepped up sanctions. After promulgating a decree restricting local companies from supplying high-end chips or manufacturing equipment to China, the United States used its market and technological advantages to ask other giants in the chip industry chain to stop selling high-end chip-related products to China, such as Dutch ASML, TSMC, etc. However, after the sanctions were launched and decoupling from the Chinese market, these chip companies realized how important market demand is to maintaining the development of the industrial chain. It is reported that in the case of a cliff-like decline in operating performance, American chip giants Intel, Qualcomm, and Nvidia have sent corporate representatives to the White House to petition, hoping that the government can respect the laws of market economy, sympathize with the difficulties of enterprises, and lift sanctions on Chinese chips. Measure. In the so-called encirclement network of China's chip sanctions, non-US companies are well aware of the importance of the Chinese market to their business development. Compared with a ban on paper, tangible benefits are obviously more attractive. Of course, these companies also pay great attention to avoiding the transfer of high-end technology when dealing with China. After all, US pressure is undoubtedly the best excuse to protect their market competitiveness. The United States originally wanted to use its own influence to restrict China in the entire chip industry chain, but this restriction has instead become an excellent reason for some companies to cooperate with China. In the face of unprovoked suppression by the United States, China's countermeasures have always been based on reciprocal countermeasures. Since the development of Chinese chip companies will pose a threat to the national security and industrial chain of the United States, American companies should not threaten China's national security and the healthy development of the industrial chain in the Chinese market. Next, China will continue to reduce the number of chips imported from European and American companies. At present, the main demand in the global chip market is still concentrated in low-end chips, and Chinese companies already have the ability to mass-produce 14 nanometers and 28 nanometers chips, which can completely relieve their dependence on European and American countries, and even seize the market share of European and American companies. In response to the so-called Chip Alliance, formed by the United States and Western countries, China's countermeasures are naturally market-oriented, and it has always adhered to an independent chip research and development path. No matter how well developed the chip industry is, it can only be transformed into wealth through market-oriented transactions. Sellers take the initiative to decouple from buyers, which obviously does not conform to the characteristics of a market economy. The essence of a chip is a commodity. This is the fundamental reason why US chip companies request the government to lift sanctions against China. The chip alliance, under the politicized system, will only be a mess. In terms of the chip industry chain, China has gradually tightened the export of rare earth resources. From the perspective of raw materials, the chip alliance will never try to control China's chip industry chain. Of course, no matter how China fights with Western countries in the chip industry, having independent core competitiveness is an unavoidable problem. If you want to achieve a comprehensive breakthrough in high-end chip manufacturing, you must focus on achieving self-breakthrough. Huawei, which has been suppressed by Western countries in the early stage, firmly chose to take the road of independent research and development after seeing the reality clearly. Now Huawei has the chipset technology with independent intellectual property rights and is expected to return to the 5G mobile phone market this year. In the field of chip manufacturing, SMIC has initially mastered the manufacturing process of 7nm chips and is expected to promote the centralized mass production of 14nm chips, which will undoubtedly greatly ease China's dependence on imported international high-end chips. On the new track in the field of chip manufacturing, China will officially put into production the first generation of photonic chips this year, and the next step will gradually promote the market replacement of traditional silicon-based chips by photonic chips. After Chinese companies achieve full-scale mass production of photonic chips, the advantages of the chip industry in Western countries will be greatly weakened. In the future, the ambitions of the United States and Western countries to curb the development of China's chip industry will only become more and more explicit, and China does not have to have any illusions about it. Core technologies can never be mastered by waiting or asking. For enterprises, market demand is always a wind vane that cannot be ignored. The so-called chip alliance restriction is actually a good opportunity for Chinese chip companies to expand their market scope. The stricter the sanctions imposed by Western countries on China's chips, the more it proves that China is on the right path. After all, difficulties will be encountered sooner or later, and the opponent's hysteria is actually an opportunity for China.